Greetings to my fellow peace blunderers and welcome to my new video where we're going to play one game at a somewhat beginner / intermediate level where I'm hoping to show you a real instructive position, my real thought process during the game, and give you some advice as we go to the best of my ability. It's important to me that this video is going to be easy to understand for a player of virtually any level, so I'll be keeping my game as simple, traditional, and sensible as possible. I don't know if that can be made into a series of videos yet. I'm gonna have to rely on your guys' feedback to see if that makes sense. And if you just so happen to find this video useful, please like and subscribe. It helps me out massively. Love you. Okay, we're playing white against the 999 from India. Interesting. All right, let's start with the very traditional and direct e4. Aiming to control the center, and we see the e5 reply. Very typical for this kind of level. This is going to cover the vast majority of the games on this level. I'm going to also respond traditionally, knight f3, just attacking the e5 pawn, nothing fancy, and we get the Philidor. Alright, my preference, although not a very strong preference, would be knight to c6, transposing into Ruy Lopez, Italian, or some other stuff, because with knight to c6 you protect the pawn on e5 as well as d6 does it, but you also develop a piece. Now Philidor isn't a bad opening, it's just considered a little bit inferior, slightly less active. I am going to play bishop c4, a very natural square for the bishop in many positions, staring down f7. And f7 is usually one of the weakest squares in many positions, and a lot of threats and tactical ideas are connected with f7. If you know Scholar's Mate, for example, it's all about f7. It's all about ganging up on that little square. It's interesting. The opponent played bishop e6. Now, I wouldn't in many positions recommend taking here for two reasons. Because after taking, the pawn recaptures and black would have a 3-2 pawn majority in the center, which allows for all kinds of different annoying pawn breaks for us later on. Let's say d5, and black will have a more solid dominant center. Second of all, if black ever castles kingside, then the rook will have a semi-open f-file, which is also can be sometimes threatening and annoying to deal with. In that sense, I could, for example, retreat bishop to b3, and if the opponent decides to capture, I recapture with the a pawn, and I'm going to enjoy a nice little semi-open a-file for my rook. Or I am going to play queen to e2, developing a piece and protecting my bishop. And the bishop got captured, I recapture with the queen. I am perfectly happy with my position for the moment. A very nice developing knight to c6. I wouldn't recommend, I'm going to castle now, I wouldn't recommend him to play something like knight a5, attacking my queen for no reason. A lot of beginner players seem to enjoy doing that. I guess they are getting some kind of weird enjoyment. Because my queen is on a slightly untypical c4, it's protecting this pawn. I have no need to play d3 just now. I'm going to play knight to c3, developing a piece. And queen is doing exactly the same job as the bishop did on c4, looking at f7. The opponent is preparing to castle, which is perfectly sensible. I am not going to play h3 because the light squared bishop is gone, and something like knight g4 doesn't really concern me, I don't think, so there is no need for that move just yet. I am going to just play solid for now. Let's just play d3, supporting the center, and I would expect the opponent to castle now. Oh no, he doesn't. Oof. All right. Now, this is also a very instructive moment. A lot of games on this level, like a huge amount of games, is won by basically not conceding material for no reason. You can study openings as much as you like. You can study middle games, end games, and whatnot. But the most important thing before you reach something like, I would say, 13, 14, 1500, some people say even more than that. It's just you don't blunder. You don't bloody blunder. Before you make a move, think about if this move is safe. Think about attack versus defense. For example, before moving that knight to d4, the opponent should have done the following. He should have calculated, I wonder what happens when the knight lands on d4. On d4, my knight will be protected once and attacked 2 times. So seeing that, he shouldn't have liked that move and shouldn't have played it. I am going to win a pawn because I have more attackers on d4 than defenders. And we just won a pawn for free by doing literally nothing. And yeah, this is what you need to be aware of. Okay, the opponent is playing really quickly, and the opponent just played c5. I guess he just wants to avenge his d4 knight, which is perfectly normal, I guess. My queen can retreat to plenty of interesting squares. Well, a plenty, I mean 3, which is not really that plenty. I am going to retreat it to a4 with check. Blocking with a pawn isn't an option because it can be captured in 2 different ways. So he's going to have to block either with the queen or with the knight. And I'm really curious as to what he does. Okay, he blocks with the knight. And probably the right idea. He is a bit down in material, so he doesn't really want to exchange. I wonder what he does after I play knight to d5. Knight to d5 is a good move, in my opinion, because d5 is an amazing square for the knight. There are no pawns now that can kick the knight away, and only this knight can potentially threaten my knight. So let's see. And having played c5 as an attempt at some sort of revenge, black permanently weakened the d6 pawn, which I am now going to target with bishop to f4. You've got to think about your pawn moves as very, very committal moves. Pawns are the only pieces on the chessboard that do not move backwards. Hence, when you make a pawn move, you are really committing yourself to something. And I don't really like what black has just committed himself to, because this d6 pawn will now be an annoying thing to defend. He played a6, probably preparing b5. I am going to give my queen an escape square. I am going to play c4 in this case. Support the knight some more. And maybe if I want to reroute my queen, I'm going to do that. Okay, an interesting move. Not at all what I expected. So he basically wants my knight out, which is understandable. But I have an interesting idea here. I'm going to capture that knight. The knight is defended, so obviously that's not a blunder. But you need to see what happens after the exchange happens. After takes, queen no longer will be on d8. And what did it do on d8? What it doesn't do on b6. It does not cover the d7 square. And now my queen can infiltrate. I am attacking this, and probably queen has to go back to d8. All right. The queen does not go back to d8. He retreats the bishop. My b2 pawn is under attack, but that is completely fine. I have threats of my own. I'm going to capture on d6. And let's see if my opponent captures on b2. He did, which is a fairly interesting decision. Some pawn exchanges will follow after rook to b1. I'm threatening the queen. And he's going to probably take on a2. And I'm going to take on b7. And will still be a pawn up. But it's not just about being a pawn up. It's about having active pieces, which I do have in abundance. I would expect him to play something like rook to d8 to skewer my queen and pawn, which he did not do. I mean, it's an interesting move, h6. He's making himself some love. That's understandable, but both rook d8 that I expected and h6 would hang the c5 pawn, which I just took. Okay, so he is now attacking my queen. I am going to, in this case, well, my queen has a lot of decent squares, to be fair. I am going to retreat it back to e3. For a reason that should be quite obvious, I'm going to support the d3 pawn, which is basically the anchor for the 2 pawns in front of it. And yeah, d3 is a weakness, admittedly. but it's a weakness that we have committed to, having captured the C and D pawns, and our D pawn being where it is. Even when you capture material, there is always some sort of imbalance. It is very rare in chess that when you get something, you don't concede something. And at the same time, I think I am going to just put my rook behind the D pawn to support it some more. And now I am going to push the pawns forward to try to win. Also, don't worry, I will be able to win despite the time. I'm just going to have to play faster and talk a bit less. But yeah, now that we have achieved a very pleasant 2-pawn advantage, we've got 2 passed pawns here. We are just going to play very, very basic stuff as we have throughout the game, and we're just going to push our pawns forward and try to win. I am going to push this guy forward first, because this way I am either blocking this bishop if he retreats, or making the bishop move away here. Okay, good. Our opponent just blundered the bishop. I guess some could argue that what's better, a bishop that is bad and a bishop that is gone? I don't know. I would obviously prefer the material. Okay, so this is where we have to be careful. We are winning, right? But our opponent just attacked our rook, and we must not lose concentration. It's very easy to sometimes get carried away with ourselves. Oh, I am a bishop up, I'm 2 pawns up, I'm invincible. It's very rare in chess that you're invincible. We are up a piece and up 2 pawns. Let's trade something. That's perfectly fine. Let's play this move. I'm basically activating my queen. There is almost no need for the queen to be on e3. I'd like my rook to do the defending. I would like my more powerful piece, the queen, to do the attacking. And now when my opponent attacks my rook, I can defend it like this with f3, and now bishop is defending my rook. He wants to displace my bishop, which is, I guess, quite understandable. I'm going to capture this pawn, and bishop is just retreating here, and we're capturing pawns that are weak. And I guess the only hope that my opponent has is some sort of flagging attempt. That's interesting. There is no checkmate that I can see. The rook can just safely retreat back. And now we are going to just play a little faster. I just delivered a little check there. And I'm going to connect my rook and queen just in case. He can take that pawn if he wants to. That's fine. He doesn't take that pawn. Well, I am going to promote it then. If he took that pawn, my plan would be to just deliver mate, which I honestly can still do. Now the queen defends the pawn, so no worries. I just need to play a bit quicker. And my opponent resigned. Okay, good. I wouldn't recommend resigning when your opponent has 26 seconds to go and you have 5 minutes. Even with that type of material, you never know what can happen in time trouble. Yeah, my opponents did a couple of things wrong, but that's completely fine. Obviously, when you are 1000 rated on chess.com and Rapid, you're obviously someone who is still learning, and we're all still learning, to be fair. I'm not the greatest chess player of all time. I'm not even the greatest chess player in my chair. So to summarize what happened in the game and the main mistakes of the opponent, first of all, he blundered a pawn, a very important central pawn at the early stages of the game, and he also blundered a piece later on where it was probably not as relevant anymore, but still, a blunder is a blunder. Second of all, with c5 here, he created a weakness on d6. He overextended himself a little bit for no particular reason, and this weakness on d6 was afterwards exploited. Thirdly, not realizing the consequences of an exchange. A lot of beginner to intermediate players very willingly go for different exchanges because some people have this mindset that when exchange material, they're making sure that they're not losing material. As long as I just get everything off the board, it'll be fine for me. But it's not always about having equal material, it's also about piece activity and piece placement. I wouldn't be too harsh to my opponent and criticize rook takes c5 that badly, because the opponent was losing and he was trying to come up with ideas, which is actually commendable. I commend that. He was trying to go for tactical complications. It's just that unfortunately this tactical complication just blunders a rook. When going for such complications, try to calculate as best as you can. And lastly, I think it's not really a mistake, but this is something that I preach: just don't resign. Don't resign, especially when your opponent is down on time. 26 seconds against someone who's not very quick. Even if he's up 8 queens, there's always a stalemate chance, there's always some wiggle room, there's always something. Maybe you can swindle out of the position. I don't think it hurts to at least finish the game with me having 26 seconds on the clock remaining, forcing me to prove that I can win this. Alright, my favorite unintentional gambiteers, please let me know in the comments whether you like the video of this format, whether I should improve it, whether I should tweak some things or abandon the idea altogether. Also, if you liked the video, please feel free to like and subscribe. I would be forever grateful. And as per usual, may all your moves on the chessboard be X-Clan moves, and have an excellent day. Love you guys. See you in the next one.